Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Text number 41. Not Anyatra Mad Bhagavataha Pradhana Purusha Ishvarat. Atmanaha Sarvabhutanam Bhayam Vibram Nivartate
Vartate
Nanyatra Bhagavata
Anyatra Mad Bhagavata
Pradhana Purusheshvarat Atmano Sarvabhutanam Bhayam Tigam Nivartate Nanyatra Bhagavata Pradhana Purusheshvarat Atmana Sarvabhutanam
Sarvabhutanam
Bhayam Tigam Nivartate
Vartate
Nanyatra Bhagavata
Anyatra Mad Bhagavata
Pradhana Purusheshvarat Atmana Sarvabhutanam Bhayam Tivram Nivartate
Anyatra Mad Bhagavata
Anyatra Mad Bhagavata
Nana Purusheshvarat
Purusheshvata
Atmana Sarvabhutanam
Atma Sarvabhutanam
Ayam Tivram Vartate
Vayam Tivram Nivartate
Nanyatra Mad Bhagavata
Vayam Bhagavad Bhagavatam
Pradhana Purusheshvarat
Dana Purusheshvarat
Atmana Sarvabhutanam
Atmana Sarvabhutanam
Bhayam Tivram Nivartate
Vayam Tivram Nivartate
Nanyatra Bhagavata
Bhagavata
Pradhana Purusheshvara
Dana Purusheshvarat
Atmana Sarvabhutanam Bhayam Tivram Nivartate.
Nivartate. I skipped you. Thank you, Prabhu. Nanyatra Mad Bhagavata
Pradhana Purusheshvara
Pradhana Purusheshvarat
Atmana Sarvabhutana
Sarvabhutanam Vayam Tivram Nivartate Nanyatra Mad Bhagavata Pradhana Purusheshvarat Atmana Sarvabhutanam Vayam Tivram Nivartate. Amen. Please chant.
नान्यत्र मद्भगवतः
Nanyatra Mad Bhagavata
प्रधानपुरुषेश्वरात्
Pradhana Purusheshvarat
आत्मनः सर्वभूतानां
Atmana Sarvabhutanam
भयं तीव्रं निवर्तते.
Vayam Tivram Nivartate.
Nanyatra Mad Bhagavata
Nanyatra Mad Bhagavata
Pradhana Puruseshvara
Pradhana Purusheshvarat
Atmanaha Sarva Bhutanam
Atmana Sarvabhutanam
Bhayam tivram nivartate.
Bhayam tivram nivartate.
Nam yatra mad bhagavata
Nanyatra mad bhagavata.
pradhana purusheshvarat
Adhana purusheshvarat.
atmana sarva bhutanam
Atmana sarva bhutanam.
vayam tivram nivartate.
Bhayam tivram nivartate. Anyone else? Okay, Prabhu.
Na
Anyatra. Otherwise.
Then myself. Bhagavata, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Pradhana Purusha Ishvarat, Lord of both Prakriti and Purusha. Atmanaha, the soul. Sarvabhuta, of all living beings. Bhayam, fear. Tivram, terrible. Nivartate, is forsaken. The terrible fear of birth and death can never be forsaken by anyone who resorts to any shelter other than myself. For I am the Almighty Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all creation, and also the Supreme Soul of all souls. Purport. It is indicated herein that the cycle of birth and death cannot be stopped unless one is a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. It is said, Harim vina namritim taranti. One cannot surpass the cycle of birth and death unless one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The same concept is confirmed herewith. One may take to the system of understanding the absolute truth by one's own imperfect sensory speculation, or one may try to realize the self by the mystic yoga process. But whatever one may do, unless he comes to the point of surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no process can give him liberation. One may ask if this means that those who are undergoing so much penance and austerity by strictly following the rules and regulations are endeavoring in vain. The answer is given by Srimad Bhagavatam 10.2.32. Ye nye ravindaksha vimuktamanina. Lord Brahma and other demigods prayed to the Lord when Krishna was in the womb of Devaki. Quote, my dear lotus-eyed Lord, there are persons who are puffed up with the thought that they have become liberated or one with God or have become God. But in spite of thinking in such a puffed up way, their intelligence is not laudable. They are less intelligent. It is stated that their intelligence, whether high or low, is not even purified. In purified intelligence, a living entity cannot think otherwise than to surrender. Bhagavad Gita therefore confirms that purified intelligence arises in the person of a very wise man. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. After many, many births, one who is actually advanced in intelligence surrenders unto the Supreme Lord. Without the surrendering process, one cannot achieve liberation. The Bhagavatam says, those who are simply puffed up, thinking themselves liberated by some non-devotional process, are not polished or clear in intelligence, for they have not yet surrendered unto you. In spite of executing all kinds of austerities and penances, or even arriving at the brink of spiritual realization, in Brahman realization, they think that they are in the effulgence of Brahman, but actually, because they have no transcendental activities, they fall down to material activities. One should not be satisfied simply with knowing that one is Brahman. He must engage himself in the service of the Supreme Brahman. That is bhakti. The engagement of Brahman should be the service of Parabrahman. It is said that unless one becomes a Brahman, one cannot serve Brahman. The Supreme Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the living entity is also Brahman. Without realization that he is Brahman, spirit soul, and eternal servitor of the Lord, if one simply thinks that he is Brahman, his realization is only theoretical. He has to realize and at the same time engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. Then he can exist in the Brahman status. Otherwise, he falls down. The Bhagavatam says that because non-devotees neglect the transcendental loving service of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, their intelligence is not sufficient, and therefore these persons fall down. The living entity must have some activity. If he does not engage in the activity of transcendental service, he must fall down to material activity. As soon as one falls down to material activity, there is no rescue from the cycle of birth and death. It is stated here by Lord Kapila, without my mercy, nan yatra mad bhagavata. The Lord is stated here to be Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, indicating that he is full of all opulences and is therefore perfectly competent to deliver one from the cycle of birth and death. He is also called Pradhana because he is the Supreme. He is equal to everyone. But to one who surrenders to him, he is especially favorable. It is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is equal to everyone. No one is his enemy and no one is his friend. But that to one who surrenders unto him, he is especially inclined. By the grace of the Lord, simply by surrendering unto him, one can get out of this cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, one may go on in many, many lives and many, many times attempt other processes for liberation. Shloka again. Nanyatra mad bhagavata pradhana purusheshvarat atmana sarva bhutanam bhayam tivrang nivartate. The terrible fear of birth and death can never be forsaken by anyone who resorts to any shelter other than myself. For I am the Almighty Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all creation, and also the Supreme Soul of all souls. Hare Krishna. Thank you for being here, devotees. Maharaj, if you'd like to share something, we'll keep watch. And all the other devotees as well, please let us know. So, does anybody have any questions from the purport or from the verse came up? Okay, Radhastali Mataji. There's a mic over there.
Hare Krishna. So the process of Ashtanga Yoga and all other processes of yoga are discussed in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna. And so are those considered material in this context? Because one might see those as processes for getting free from the cycle of birth and death. And so can you discuss that further?
Yeah. So in the 6th chapter especially, Lord Krishna discusses some topics of the Ashtanga Yoga process. And Prabhupada describes in his essay, The Perfection of Yoga, that such descriptions by Lord Krishna are not meant to encourage the jivas to take to Ashtanga Yoga in Kali Yuga. He's not saying it for that reason. He's mentioning it to actually let Arjuna tell everybody that he can't do it. So such a principle is a foundation to the Ashtanga Yoga process, for which one has to meditate for thousands of years at a time without falling asleep. So anyway, the one thing that is interesting is that when we perform other processes in Bhakti Yoga, then that portion is Bhakti Yoga. So this is what's called Jnana Mishra Bhakti or Karma Mishra Bhakti, that we are actually, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer and give away, as well as whatever austerities you may perform, do that as an offering unto me. That's in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is specifically Lord Krishna saying, direct yourself to my service. And so if one, sits straight or does breathing or does asana for Krishna's pleasure, to that extent, that is bhakti. But to the extent that we are doing it for some other purpose is not bhakti. And therefore, eventually, in the beginning, one may actually use these subordinate processes actually in bhakti to please the Supreme, and that is bhakti. But one cannot reach the perfection of bhakti by holding on sentimentally to his various different processes that kind of suit him in his nature and his mind. So and eventually bhakti comes to the point of doing whatever the spiritual master wants us to do. So I may like to stretch, or I may like to breathe, or I may like to live in a secluded place, but if the spiritual master says, please engage wholeheartedly in the Sankirtan movement, which can take form in these ways, then like that. But now we have an example. Somebody may host a class of yoga to attract conditioned souls who like to be in the bodily concept of life. Yes, I am very beautiful. I am very stretchy, right? They like that. That's their whole vibe, You see how stretchy I am? You see how beautiful I am? And so let us, the devotee may, with the permission of his spiritual master, right, or his Shiksha gurus, may use that, right, and may actually lead a class of yoga in such a way, and then, for the purpose of connecting them with the movement. Now, or one may prepare a prasadam preparation that he thinks will be suitable for his audience. Such as if we give somebody something like a gulab on the plaza when they're trying to be all nice and pretty and all this and, civilized, and we pop a gulab into their hand, it's absolute. But at the same time, they may say, hey man, come on. You have something dry? So like that, right? So we may do something like this. So ultimately our purpose is to please the Supreme Lord, and we have to take to this process of pleasing the Lord in 9 processes of bhakti, and the other speculative means of understanding the Supreme and understanding the Supreme by our material senses are not recommended in this age. So hopefully I didn't confuse it more. I brought up some other things which may have not been so pertinent, but anyway, Yeah, basically it's about shelter, right? Like I was thinking, okay, everyone wants to be healthy, right? But that's a natural bodily consciousness. Like that's a natural function of being inside of a temporary body, is trying to maintain the life force within the body, right? But you can understand that if I'm not the body, why shall I be so much concerned with maintaining my life force inside of this temporary body, right? So this is why if one becomes Brahmin, then they don't have the same considerations. But under the guidance of the spiritual master, the devotee may engage in some activities which look like karma to maintain his life force within his body, simply for the pleasure of the spiritual master and the Lord. It looks like he's doing karma like everybody else, but his consciousness is different. So actually, we can understand Krishna consciousness is the most subtle thing, because I can be doing an activity such as taking a medicine, and another fellow is also taking a medicine, and it looks like we're doing the same thing, but rather the devotee who takes the medicine for Krishna's pleasure is not contaminated by karma, and he actually, by taking that medicine, he may understand Krishna more intimately, right? And by this fool taking his medicine, he's going down and down into to more and more ignorance. So that's why this is the essence, is the shelters. We don't think that the medicine will save me. We think Krishna's pleasure. If I give Krishna some pleasure, that will save me. Right? That's my only shelter. Yes.
So is there a difference between karma, as in fruitive activities, and karma yoga?
Yes, this is the difference. When karma yoga becomes perfect in knowledge, when our sambandha gyan is perfect, that means I actually get it, that I am Krishna's servant, right? I can get it theoretically. I can act like it's very beautiful, actually. Prabhupada describes the beginning of yoga, the beginning of spiritual life is when we actually start to see Krishna, right, in the things that we always see. So Prabhupada has an amazing purport in the Gita where he says, if you teach somebody that Krishna is the light of the sun and the moon, they can start their Krishna consciousness. But it hasn't yet, what does that mean? That means they start to recognize Krishna, and because they have an appreciation for the sun, obviously, I mean, nowadays we're getting a little silly. We don't even have appreciation for the sun and the moon and the earth and the water and everything. We're that ignorant. We don't even understand our life force is being maintained by these wonderful gifts of Krishna. You know, we're so silly. But an intelligent person, or just a sane person, will understand the sun is God. The sun is my life. I don't have food without the sun. Man, God is amazing. He's so kind to me. Appreciation. So then is starting his Shantaras, Bhav, his Shantaras. He starts to appreciate Krishna. Prabhupada said, to know that God is, Prabhupada described, God is very good. It's true. But it's not very high. It's not a very high consciousness, right? It's just the baseline. But nowadays it seems very high to just normal. Now, then you go into Dasaras. What does that mean? That means that now you begin your Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada, a nice lecture example, and he says, you want to eat, don't you? You want to eat, and you're going to have to. And later, we may think, no, I don't want to eat. I'm transcendental to eating. I don't want to eat. But just for the moment. But at a certain point, the belly juices will get so intense and the fire in the stomach will just be screaming for sustenance, right? And the mind will be completely overwhelmed with, the urge to eat, right? To put something onto the tongue, right? And to fill up the belly, right? That you will go and find something to consume, right? You'll be impelled. So the concept is, before you eat it, give it to Krishna. That's called karma yoga. But when you really understand, I'm not this body, I'm not this silly urge, I'm Krishna's servant. I'm eternally Krishna's servant, not just theoretically. And that's what Prabhupada was describing here in the purport. He said that when these people really get it, when they really get it, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadyate. They don't try to feed themselves in the separately from Krishna. They want to eat for Krishna, but they still eat. You see? So the guy who wants to eat for himself but gives it to Krishna first, he's in karma yoga. He is connected with Krishna. And that's why it's so important that we have the deity, because the deity helps everybody do karma yoga. You know? We may have impure desires, right? For me, but I give it to him and he's here, right? So then when our knowledge increases up to perfection, then we don't do it for me, because we know doing it for me doesn't even make me happy or satisfy me. Only doing it for Krishna. But we may be like Bhima and we may eat huge quantities of prasadam, right? But me, I may want to eat huge quantities of prasadam for my tongue and belly, but I give it to Krishna. So that's called karma yoga, right? Yes, Prabhuji?
I just wanted to make a comment about what you were just saying about giving everything to Krishna. Basically, what you were talking about when you were talking about eating something, I have personal experience of this because before I came to the temple, I had this like voracious, I still have it, but not as bad, but I had this voracious like tendency to just eat anything that was edible, and except for things that were good for me. But so I would eat like fast food, I would eat like ramen noodles, I would eat chocolate, I would eat everything. But for some reason, until I came to the temple, I didn't realize that. Actually, I did realize it, but first, in the moment, I was thinking like, why am I not? I'm not satisfied. I just want to eat more and more. Why do I just want to keep eating more and more and more? And why don't I just stop? Why can't I just stop? And it wasn't until I came to the temple that I realized, that's why, because you have to offer your food to Krishna, and then the love that you offer it with, that's what sustains you. Because when you're eating these fast food restaurant places, they don't have any love prepared in the food, and also it's not offered to Krishna, and it's also meat, and it's also like preservatives, a bunch of other empty calories and stuff like that. So eating something wholesome along with offering it to Krishna with love and devotion. That's what, at least from my personal experience, that's what actually gives us fulfillment.
Thank you very much. Yes. This is the higher taste. And actually this has been exemplified in Hanuman. Hanuman, he was hungry once and he was eating a lot of stuff, and then he finally got one tulsi leaf. And as soon as he got the tulsi leaf, then he was done. So he was the soul. We were searching for connection, intimacy, exchange, reciprocation, affection with Krishna. And that raw prema, right? Nityasera Krishna Prema Sabukabunai. I think it said, Shuddha Chitta, when the consciousness is completely purified, then there's Krishna Prema is there below the coverings. And the living entity is Brahman. So this is the same in the purport. The living entity is Brahman, but what are the activities of Brahman? The activities of Brahman are to love Krishna and to associate with him and his devotees. And that's why if we just theoretically think, I am Brahman, okay, very good. But if my devotional service isn't strong, there's actually this word here, bhayam tivram nivartate. Bhayam, fear, tivram, terrible fear. Bhayam tivram nivartate. Then you can give it up. You give it up. So this is actually very similar to the verse, param drishtva nivartate. When you get the higher taste, then you can give the lower taste. What does this mean? This means that the living entity is addicted to fear. We are getting a taste out of this, right? And it's actually normal, because if somebody isn't afraid of death, then they just die. Like there's some fellow, he may have taken some acid and stuff, or he may kind of just lost touch, right? And he said, he was telling everybody that he could fly, and he jumped off a building. He had this whole thing like, if you believe it, you can do it, and all this. And he was giving some points to the kids and everything. And then he jumped off the roof. That was real. Yeah. So it wasn't a good example, right? He's actually lost his sanity for a moment, right? And this happens. And if any living entity loses touch with this fear principle, then he'll just do something silly and he'll die. And he'll lose his life, right? So what is this? This means this fearing is actually, this bhayam is actually built into the instincts, right? The flight or fight. And, if that wasn't there, then it'd be, even for the human body, there's the fight or flight thing that comes up when somebody gets in a car crash, or there's a fire, or you have to rescue the children or something like that. And there's such a power of fear of losing life that one gets this potency to do something very wonderful, But this fearing is in the mode of ignorance, This fearing is, of course, there is fearing for oneself as if he is the body is the definition of ignorance. I can never die. And this is the same thing that Arjuna was explained to by Krishna at the beginning. He said, the soul never dies. So what are you so afraid of? You're afraid to do your duty. You're actually passionately avoiding your duty because it's difficult, right? And because you're thinking that people are going to die, it's complete ignorance. Nobody's going to die here. The soul is eternal, immutable, So, yeah, what's amazing about Krishna consciousness is that it's so subtle. It's so subtle. And we evoke that incredibly subtle consciousness systematically. We dovetail our contaminated consciousness in yoga by the order of the spiritual master. So now we want to eat, and I want to eat because I think I'm going to die if I don't eat. But I'm not going to die. I never will die. So I get that theoretically, but especially when the urge comes, I think I'm going to die. That means I didn't actually realize it yet, I didn't actually get to the point of perfection of consciousness, right? But on the way, I simply continue doing my bhakti. Even if it's motivated like that, right? I have to continue. But we always have to remind ourselves, unmotivated service is the only thing that'll actually satisfy the self, right? The famous verse, Can you say it? Can you use the mic, please?
I forgot the first line. I was just saying Ahaitu Kia Pratiyatam.
Right. So what is the supersedity? Yatma suprasidati. Exactly. Ahaitu ki. We need this unmotivated service. So until we get to there, there'll be a little bit of dissatisfaction, but we can rest assured by the mercy of the pure devotees, and Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they really, really want to give us prema bhakti right away, as soon as possible. And we just have to want it, and we have to engage in their service. And when they are pleased to give us purification, very good. And it's up to them. If they want it to take a long time, that's up to them. And I'll try my best, If I don't try my best, if I'm not determined to give my all for Krishna, then Prabhupada writes an amazing purport in the Gita. He says that one should follow very strictly, the instructions of the spiritual master, the rules and regulations of worship, because and God will surely help. The Lord will surely help, for God helps those who help themselves. So it's a kind of a thing where we decide, like, I'm going to chant 16 rounds Maha Mantra every day. I'm going to follow 4 regulated principles every day. And I'm going to, and then we don't know exactly what Krishna wants in our contaminated state. We don't have that qualification. But the spiritual master, who's literally the mercy incarnation of Krishna, comes to us and says, yeah, I'd like you to take this course, or I'd like you to wash the floor now. I'd like you to work with this devotee. I'd like you to, chant your rounds, obviously. I'd like you to read Gita. I'd like you to do the classes. I'd like you to do this book distribution, right? Whatever he may say, then we don't have to speculate. Oh, that's what Krishna wants? That's amazing. And this is a purity and a simplicity that makes our life effective. Then we can put our energy into it. And that's why we review the philosophy, we get clarity, and then it simplifies things. Say, oh, the spiritual master wants this. I'll just try to do it as best as I can. I may not be good at it. I'm going to try my best. And that best trying is what gives Krishna the most pleasure. And he will purify the heart if we keep trying. So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.